Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with another episode of the Snowflakes Viewpoint. And as you can imagine, it's not live. No, this is not live. The time of this recording is Sunday, the 18th of June. Recording this just around about 7 o'clock in the evening, guys, for you. So obviously for those who haven't been paying attention to my community post or not been watching my videos, just going to give you a faithful reminder of what's happening. I'm on holiday next week, and I literally fly out on my holiday on Monday. So because of that, I'm not going to be able to be here for it. However, I am premiering this so that you guys in the chat can mingle with each other, and hopefully you guys are actually being nice and respectful to each other. So hello to all of you in the chat. Hope you guys are all well. I hope you all had, in all seriousness, had a fabulous weekend, and I hope you're all well. So this Snowflake Viewpoint, because I have provided content throughout the week pretty much throughout the whole of the UK, mostly pretty much all the videos I'm dropping from Monday to Friday for you guys will be in the UK. So this episode of Snowflakes Viewpoint is pretty much more on the world stage, guys. World news that we're going to look at together, and I do have one or two funny videos I'm going to drop in between, guys, just to kind of break the tension a little bit, because some of these news is not very nice. It's not going to be some very nice news, some of it, but some of it is. But I feel like it's important for us to learn and understand these things. No, and I don't do these and I don't sometimes read these stories to get you guys upset or to make you sad, but to understand what is happening in the outside world, and that even though not all of us know that these things are happening, so it's about us understanding that. So let's dive straight into it, guys. If I can just get myself together, that would be really, really helpful. Have I got that the right way round? Yeah, so I am going to be mingling all over the place. Hopefully the camera don't cut off. I did try to do this earlier today, and I was 3/4 away in, and it went, and I had to do it all again. So let's wait. Let's hope this one goes well. I'm just going to say now, if you hear some noise in the background, that's going to happen. Hopefully I don't get too much noise in the background. And secondly, of course, I am going to mispronounce names, words and things wrong. So that is to be expected. Right, so let's get straight into it, guys. So we start with the Kyiv post here. I thought this is a nice, interesting one. I've got a couple of posts from the war in Ukraine, so let's dive into them. So everything is going to plan in Kyiv. It's a quiet confidence but concern for troops in the summer offensive. So it's a bit more of a relaxing, a bit more of a different story here from the Kyiv post. So I think everything is fine. This is not wrestling where you need to win quickly. People who have planned this have bigger heads than horses, one Kyiv knight told the Kyiv Post. So May was a difficult month for Kyiv. A dramatic uptick in Russian missiles and drones attacks kept the capital awake at night after night as the sounds of explosions rocked the city. June so far has been quieter, but with a new month comes a new focus for concern: Ukraine's long-awaited summer offensive. After months of build-up and arguably too much hype, the country's armed forces have launched a number of limited and probing attacks against Russia's defences, with the main thrust still yet to come. On the streets of Kyiv, a quiet, confident reigns, but one is checked by a realisation that there is a long and costly slog ahead. Roman, a 32-year-old military lawyer from Kyiv, stressed that people shouldn't expect a repeat of Ukraine's counteroffensive last year, which took back whole great swathes of territory in his home region thanks to large parts of the Russians being distracted by a separate Ukrainian push in the Kherson region launched a few days previously. This is not the Kharkov operation where the Russians were deceived by Kherson, he tells Kiev Post. Now, no one has been deceived. The enemy knows there will be a counteroffensive. I think it's better to be careful and slow, with fewer human losses and fewer losses of equipment, than to advance abruptly and quickly, and then to have say, let's save up for another year for a new equipment. Absolutely, I agree. Take little bits at a time rather than trying to take everything at once and lose lives. We want to minimise casualties as much as you possibly can, so I agree with that. I think everything is fine. This is not wrestling where you need to win quickly. The people who plan this have bigger heads than horses. In terms of official announcements, the summer offensive was launched in silence, with President Zelensky only acknowledging it was underway nearly a week after a significant uptick in Ukrainian military activity. Since then, the defensive military has been issuing daily updates, but only in relatively broad terms, and there has been no mention of Ukrainian casualties. No one in the Kiev Post seems to mind the limited information coming from their political and military leaders, accepting that it's a necessary part of the summer offensive. Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to, we're going to attack on this day. You're not going to do it. Let's be realistic, guys. We can't be told everything that Ukraine had been planned, and they need to keep it that way. The less we know about Ukraine's military plans, the better, because anything we get told, Russia will find out, because they have spies everywhere. So it's better that they not say anything. I think that the military leadership is doing everything properly, and what they can tell us is what they will tell us, said Yerhing, a 19-year-old student at the Kiev Mongol Academy. Ola, 18, and Yovov, 19, both students of the Kiev Mongol Academy. I have seen this information about the liberated villages, and I think it's encouraging. I think everything is going according to plan. Everything we need to know, we know. When it is possible to say more, we will be told. I have no problem waiting for the official information. There is a clear realisation among people in Kiev that, regardless of what's happening right now on the front lines, the summer offensive will be a long battle against an enemy still in possession of significant resources, that it has time to build up formidable defensive positions. Tayana, 74, if I said that wrong, I apologise, says, it doesn't happen like it in a fairy tale. One attack and then the enemy is forever defeated, especially when the enemy is so strong. And they've thrown a lot of rough bodies at this as well, the Russians. Voraldi, a 27-year-old theatre director from Kyiv, is confident of victory, but painfully aware of the costs involved. We're going to win for sure, he says, but it's scary how things are going. I'm scared for the guys. Lilia, a 45-year-old photographer, worried about even some Ukrainians, never mind foreigners, don't fully appreciate the human cost involved in liberating the country. They don't understand that every 15 centimetres of the deoccupied military is paid for by the lives of our troops, she says, adding, I'm very worried about each and every one who was killed, and I look at all the lists and all the videos. That's harsh on the mental mind. Mentally. That's you have a strong mental will to look at that stuff. It is bad for my mental health. I just literally said that. Bless. But these are the people who protect me. These are professional people. The military and the Ukrainians trust them. I consider everything else superfluous at the moment. I think it's a nice insight to hear what some young people, some those, think on the story so far. So what is the current update, guys? So we go from here to the Kiev. I think I need to swap cameras here. Give me a moment. So we go from there to, is that the right one? I think that's the right one. Hold on a second. Yep, that's probably, no, I'm cut off. Just give me 1 second. So we're going to come to the Kiev. Ooh, that should be better. You should be able to see that. Yeah, you should. Oh, wait, no. I'm playing about with the buttons, guys. Bear with me. This is what happens when you don't plan things properly. Clearly, I don't plan things properly while you guys are waiting. Can you see that? See that? Yeah, they can see that. Okay. Right. Right. Hopefully, you guys can see the information. All right. Right. So this is from the Kyiv Independent. It's one of the latest updates from here. So the counteroffensive underway. We overestimate Russians and underestimate ourselves. So this is Ukrainian soldiers. This picture here is Ukrainian soldiers with the 81st Air Mobile Brigade holding the position in the Dorries outblast in the summer of 2022. A year later, units of the 81st are conducting operations in the region, apparently. So obviously they've edited the names for obviously security reasons. So Donetsk Oblast. Islam's mind was empty of thoughts and feelings as he crawled carefully towards the Russian trenches near Silvervich with grenades prepared. You crawl forward and you look carefully, said the soldier from the 81st Air Mobile Brigade. Days later, after he and his platoon took positions several dozen kilometres north of Bakhmut without losses. You don't think about anything, it's only how to get in there. The Russians failed to notice the stealthy Ukrainians until the attackers' grenades went into the trenches. The platoons from the 81st went in by twos and threes, started a vicious close-range firefight with the enemy group. Many of the Russian troops ran away after being taken by surprise. Some remained in their dugouts, trying to shoot back. They ultimately surrendered but not without trouble. One Russian fighter yelled out, "I surrender," right before throwing a grenade. 5 prisoners were taken, 3 Russian National Guardsmen and 2 proxy fighters from occupied Lugansk Oblast. They were observation posts. All communications were hanging on them, said Sasha, the platoon commander. He identified the unit as the 1st platoon for security reasons. The enemy didn't even know that we had taken a third position towards the end of the operation. They didn't know what was going on. The positions were tactically important, given that the Russian fire control and overwatch of much of the district. Supplies of arms and ammunition rely on these position protections, and they hindered the movement of Ukrainian supplies throughout the area. A decision was made to make them a sudden strike, giving the platoon 2 weeks to prepare. There was time to prepare, develop a bunch of options, pick the ones that work for us and use it, said Sasha. Surprise was achieved. That's what I like about the assault. It says that you should never underestimate your enemy. He went on, in this assault we overestimate their capabilities and underestimate ours. After Ukrainian forces took the 3 Russian positions they were ordered to capture, the Russians began to run away from nearby positions as well. If we'd known and prepared more people, we could have occupied those positions too. The assault was just one little fiat of Ukraine's long-awaited counteroffensive, which began around June the 5th. After Russia's attacks from late winter to mid into late spring didn't make much significant gains anywhere except the city of Bakhmut, Ukraine hopes to use Russia's stalled drive to regain momentum, possibly pierce some lines and take back swaths of territory. Ukraine has set itself the total goal of total liberalization, including Crimea. The Ukrainian officials such as Defense Minister Hanna Mara confirmed that counteroffensive operations are ongoing, and soldiers from the 81st and the 57th Brigades have told the Kyiv Independence that Ukrainian forces are on the move, slowly advancing in the Russians in the Donetsk Oblast. This is good stuff. I like the fact that they're being very careful. I like that any kind of just small little things, nothing too major, nothing too big, just slow stuff. Nothing that's going to, as minimal losses as you can. If you can take territory, take it, but try not to, put yourself, you're putting your lives at risk, obviously, and we don't want, want to minimise as many losses as they possibly can. And I like that they're being very careful, more careful than they were last year on it, because the West are not as keen to throw ammunition and weapons and artillery and fighters for the Ukrainians as much as they used to, I feel. That's how I personally feel about it. I mean, they still are, but just I don't think they're firing as much as they used to. About a dozen soldiers in front, loud hounds and in a field position said that recently Russian forces have switched from constant prodding attacks to trying to entrench and defend territories that they had captured. Now they're saying on the defence, now they're not advancing, said Shirley. A member of the drone scout unit of the 57th Motorised Brigade Artillery Unit, Ukrainian soldiers used the commercial DJI Mavic drones to locate specific Russian targets and send coordinates to the Yankiga artillery gun operators. Excuse me. Now we're trying to advance this soon. Well, little by little. We're taking back our lands, our positions. The Ukrainian units are able to perform tactical operations like the 1st Platoon Surprise Night Strike. The overall counter-offensive is unlikely to be as quick as the one that routed the Russian forces into Kharkov Oblast in September, experts believe. Despite the presence of elite, well-prepared and experienced brigades like the 81st and Ukraine's recently created assault guard brigades that contain many hardened veterans, Russia have had the time to get well-prepared for the coming liberation onslaught. Soldiers near Slavik said the Russians have been digging in like never before, making their trenches properly deep, unlike the shallow ditches they were relying on when we were on the offensive. Yeah, they've been in those positions for a long. Russia have had solid positions for a long time now, so they've had plenty of time to dig into most of their positions. Excuse me. Russian forces have prepared extensive defences, especially in the Zaporizhzhia Oblast, where they set up multiple dozen lines of kilometres deep from the Kharkov Oblast through the Luhansk Oblast. And there's a strong main line running down south. However, Russian defences thinned out behind Bakhmut according to satellite maps of the area. And Russia has made most of its significant gains in the east thanks to the state-backed Wagner Group private army. Yeah, they're the ones that really help push for the capture of Bakhmut, really, haven't they? But since then, the large troops rotating in the area of Wagner troops giving way to regular forces as they've been on the attack. Wagner has probably been tapped to prepare for some of the incoming forces in combat. Over 8 months here we have Wagner's. Then there were 2 rotations, says Sasha. Koshigan, an artillery officer from the 57th, said a similar thing. They once faced Wagner troops in the area, who were prepared by other units, who were in turn replaced once more. He said that compared to Wagner, the Russian defence military troops have much lower levels of preparedness and worse capabilities. Soldiers from the 81st would agree, saying that Wagner forces were properly prepared, had decent maps, good equipment and transportation and night vision, making them extensive use of cryptography. In contrast, regular troops and Donbass proxies tend to exchange unencrypted coordinates, and intercepted communications reveal drunkenness and soldiers listening to music at forward positions. That doesn't help you. I may not be a soldier, but I don't think drinking before a battle or listening to music, that's not really going to help you. It might help your morale, but how much focus is that really going to help you? Just saying. Typical working stiffs who get mobilised and sent somewhere else, Sasha said. The other difference is in the fear and motivations of these units. Commanders inspire. Forces like Wagner's can threaten their men without being shot or sledgehammers for retreating, surrendering, or refusing to participate in assault, however suicidal. Yeah, I've actually seen one video footage of, allegedly, of Wagner forces literally shooting Russian soldiers retreating from a fight. Don't know. I don't know how real it was though. It was in pretty brutal, to be fair, when I saw it. Obviously, I'm not going to show you. When Russian regular forces fled the 1st Platoon assault, the Ukrainians intercepted Russian communications, in which the soldiers refused to go back to the recaptured, lost position. There are rumours going around that that friendly artillery would hit them with deadly chemical rounds. However, the regular military also tried to lean on threats of death when it can. You often hear, if you don't go in, you will be annulled, Sasha said, citing the Russian National Guard's communications. More frequently, Russians respond to losing their positions by blindly bombarding the area with artillery, as some said. Even so, the Russians overwhelmed with artillery advantage. Over the Ukrainians prepared to be shrinking, Russia's artillery shell expenditure once completely dwarfed Ukraine's, but now they're rapidly approaching partly, multiple soldiers have said. Well, small steps. Let's hope the small steps continue. That's for sure, guys. Got one more story on Ukraine, and then we'll break things up a little bit, guys. So this one is from Al Jazeera, and let's see if I can get. I'm playing with the buttons. This is one better. No, it's not good. 1 second, guys. I've got to play with the buttons again. Oh no. Let's try. Nope, that's not good either. This is not. See, this is what happens when I don't prepare things. There we go. That's better. Right, so that's from Al Jazeera, guys. So the war in Ukraine must stop. South Africa's Ramaphosa tells Putin. The South African president says the war is having a negative impact on the African continent and many other countries. So South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is in Russia as part of a peace-seeking delegation, told his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin that the war in Ukraine must stop. Ramaphosa laid out the 10 points of the African Peace Initiative that is seeking agreement on a series of conflict-building measures, even as Ukraine last week began a counteroffensive to push back Russian forces. This war has to have an end. It must be settled through negotiations and through diplomatic means, said Ramaphosa in St. Petersburg on Saturday at the 18th century Kościuszko Palace. He added his delegation, consisting of 7 African leaders, came with a very clear message that this war had to be ended. This war is having a negative impact on the African continent and indeed on many other countries around the world, Ramaphosa said. Putin interrupted opening remarks by African leaders seeking to mitigate in the Ukrainian conflict to deliver his list of reasons why he believes many of their proposals were misguided. He reiterated his position that Ukraine and the West have started the conflict long before Russia sent its armed forces over the border in February last year. He said Russia had never refused talks with the Ukrainian side, which has been blocked by Kyiv. That's what he's saying, not saying it's true. The group also includes leaders from Egypt, Republic of Congo, Senegal, Zambia, Uganda and Cosmos. On Friday, the delegation has held talk with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Kyiv. Ukrainian leaders said after meeting leaders that peace talks with Russia would be possible only after Moscow withdrew its forces from the occupied Ukrainian territory. We have come to listen to you and through you to hear the voices of the Russian people, said Cosmo President Azay Adamoudi, who currently heads the African Union, told Putin, "We want to encourage you to enter the negotiations with Ukraine." African countries have been divided over their response to the conflict, with some siding with Ukraine, while others have remained neutral or gravitated towards Moscow. During their meeting with Zelensky, the Ukrainian president requested the African leaders to push Putin to release political prisoners as a confidence-building measure. I mean, it's nice that they're trying to get some kind of peace in between, but excuse me, I mean, I just don't see any kind of peace coming through this, guys. I really don't. I mean, it's just, I like to think so. Putin's not someone who wants to. He's not the kind of person that will accept defeat. He will not accept the loss of territory. He just won't. Ukraine wants their territory back. It's been taken from them. I don't think that's I think it's, and as much as I think, I don't see them getting around the table yet. And I say yet because it's possible that they may get around the table. It doesn't say that they won't, but they may do, guys. They may do. Balanced approach. Putin, 70. He's 70 years old. Forget how old he is. On Saturday, praised the balanced approach of African countries towards the Ukraine conflict. "We welcome the balanced approach on African friends to the Ukrainian crisis," Putin told the visiting leaders. "We're open to constructive dialogue with all those who want peace based on the principles of respect of each other's interests as well as justice. Yet you started the war." Just saying. The Russian leader also said exports of Ukrainian grain under the deal ensured its safe passage through the Black Sea was not helping to resolve Africa's problems with high global food prices, as only 3% had gone to the poorest countries. Putin said the food crisis had been caused by the actions of Western countries, not by what Russia calls a special military operation in Ukraine. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on Saturday that there appears to be no chance of extending the deal permitting Ukraine to export grain safely across the Black Sea through Russian-controlled waters. "It's hardly possible to predict any final decision here, but I can say that judging de facto by the status quo that we have, this deal has no chance," Peskov told the Russian news outlet Izvestia. Al Jazeera's Ali Hashgan reported from Moscow that said while many were sceptical the peace mission could lead to breakthrough between Russia and Ukraine, some argue the experienced African leaders have some internal and regional conflicts they may be able to come up with an out-of-the-box solution. However, this multi-layered and intertwined that is so complicated the Americans, the Europeans, the Chinese, everyone is trying to have their own say on it. It doesn't seem to be solved anytime soon. Well, to be fair, they have conflicts of their own in their own continent to need to deal with, which needs to be resolved as well. So I think they need to be looking at them just as much as looking at what's happening in Ukraine, to be fair. If I'm honest, I mean, it's good that they want to try and help, but I don't see, at the moment as things stand, guys, I just don't see that solution. I mean, if you guys have a solution, leave me a message in the chat, because I will be coming back to look at the messages, that's for sure, but just don't think there will be. So it's time to let's just move away a little bit from the from this and break a little bit. We're going to go a little bit back to the UK with a little something. Oh no, why is that? Why is this? Do you know what? I keep thinking I have everything under control, and then I find out everything's not under control. Oh God. Oh no. See, this is not good. You're going to end up just skipping a lot of bits now. I think I'm just going to end up doing that. 3. Let me do that. I've got so many windows open, guys. It's just that's the problem. Yeah, can you guys see that? Yeah, you can see that from there. If I do that, I just have to do that for now. Right. There we go. Right. Right. Let's listen to something different, guys.
Change my career.
I thought you were unemployed.
I am.
So you've decided to get a career.
Yeah, whatever, okay? I've made a resume.
What did you put on it? You don't have any qualifications.
Yes, I do. Huh.
Newspaper editor.
Mm-hmm.
When were you a newspaper editor?
When I was a kid, I had the newspaper round, so...
The paper round?
Yeah, wait. Everyone expects you to exaggerate a little bit on a resume.
Bar manager at Eleanor's.
Yeah.
You've never worked there.
No, but I drink there so much that the barman said I could be the manager. You know, could be, should be, would be, was...
Oh my God. Orthopedic surgeon at St. Mark's Hospital. You cannot write that down.
No, I was the best in my family at that board game operation. With a steady hand.
Aside from the obvious criminal problems here, don't you think they're going to find it a little odd that you've got bar work on your resume beside orthopedic surgeon?
If anything, they're just going to think I'm overqualified.
Yeah. Business consultant?
Yeah.
I mean, what even is that job?
You see, that's why it's perfect. It's such a vague job, nobody knows what it is. And then the people who are one, they can't even describe what they do.
Trainee psychologist?
I have a couch.
Oh, so you've the same furniture as a psychologist. Why didn't you say so?
And that's time.
This whole resume is full of lies.
Everybody lies on the resume. Just relax, will you?
Yeah, they say they work well in a team, or they like sea swimming. Not that they volunteered with St. John's Ambulance.
That's true.
No, it isn't. You just had the uniform, which you used to sneak into football matches, and then when there was an actual emergency in the crowd, you ran away.
Yeah, because I was unqualified.
And finally, the truth.
Well, no, you just over it. It's simple, all right? Look, you get the job. You go in, you learn on the job, right? And by the time they figured out the truth, well, you just go, yeah, you know what? You got me. I'm not qualified. But didn't I do a great job? And then they're like, well, you know what? Dr. McGuire? Yes, you did. Welcome aboard.
Or they'll say, you're under arrest, you complete maniac.
No, I did a good job.
No, you won't even get the job in the first place, because once they check any one of your references, they'll know it's a complete hoax.
That's where I come in.
Oh.
6 burner phones are all the references I need.
Hello. Sunday Independent front desk here.
Hello, Dr. Devlin's surgery. Agnes speaking.
Hello, Battersea Crematorium. Declan speaking. Aegon was the best corpse burner we had. He really enjoyed it.
Well, I think I'll give him the job.
I think you should.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You see?
I don't understand a few white lies, but you even lied about your hobbies here.
What you want me to put down? Like drinking and pigeon shooting?
Clay pigeon shooting.
Yeah, or that.
There is not one single true thing on this.
Yeah, well, I needed to put down something, didn't I? Resumes are biased against the unemployed. You need a job to get a job. It's a malicious, exclusionary system benefiting only those who have easy access to employment through nepotism or private school privilege. Look, if I didn't put down lies, the resume would be basically blank.
Burundian gold medal winning sculptural artist at the National College of Art in Burundi.
Yeah, you see, it's untraceable.
Bonjour, pompier volontaire Burundi. Je m'appelle Agnes.
They speak French in Burundi.
Research.
You'll never get a single job with this resume.
Yeah? Watch me.
Yeah. So, have you got a job yet?
No.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, but I haven't handed out any resumes, so...
Why not?
We don't have a printer here, and that means we'd have to go to the library to get it printed, which is ages away. It's a pain. And then we have to find out where all the employers are, their addresses, and then we've got to travel to each one and then hand it in by hand, and it's just... to be honest, it just seemed like work.
Doomed up.
Hey, we're Foot Dog.
Of course it's work. That's how it works. Oh, living heck. What else was you thinking? Oh my God, these people. They don't understand a clue whatsoever, do they? Jesus. It's work. Work is too much for me. I hope you enjoyed that, guys, because we're going back to some... This is a hard news. I don't like this one, but I think it's important to talk about. So we're going to go to Middle East Eye here, guys. Syrian refugees, guys. In trouble. Lebanon are rounding up Syrian refugees for deportation regardless of their legal status. So despite the UN protection, increasing number of Syrians are being rounded up by the army and sent back to Lebanon, war-torn neighbour. So refugees fleeing Syria, seeking refugees in Lebanon, and then being forced back even though they've still got legal status. It's not good. So Galakan, a 26-year-old Syrian refugee, lives in a precarious and uncertain existence in Lebanon. He and his 40-year-old brother Adi had originally fled Syria in 2012 as the country begins to descend into civil war. They registered as Syrian refugees with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, which is meant to secure their status in Lebanon. However, on the 26th of April, Adi was forcibly deported from the Lebanese army from the Kyiv Idlis camp in western Baha on the 26th of April and was handed over to Syrian forces, who conscripted him into mandatory military service against his will. Ghassan told Middle East Eye that on the day of Adi's deportation to Syria, he spoke with Adi's wife, who informed him that Adi was planned in one of the Syrian brigades of the 4th Division near the Lebanon's border. A Syrian army officer requested $200 from her to assist Adi in escaping, but Ghassan had already heard this kind of story. When she told me that I was convicted, he was lying. My wife Barka Bashika was arrested in 2013. So Syrian authorities demanded money for his release, and my wife's family paid over $1,000. But they didn't release him, he said. Later we discovered that he had been killed in Sana'a prison with a bullet to his forehead, thanks to a leaked photo from Caesar's expedition, which revealed evidence of torture and death in Syria's prison. Without any option on how to help his brother, Ghassan posted a video on TikTok appealing to the international community. However, he was threatened and had to seek refuge in North Lebanon, saying that there were individuals aligned with the Syrian regime who act as informants in the camps. I'm afraid I do not want to lose my children and my mother because of my words. I am tired. I can no longer bear this situation for the fear of deportation, he said. Middle East and I could not independently verify Ghassan's statements on the presence of informants. So allegedly, because he spoke out, they were looking for him, informants inside Lebanon, to try and get him and take him back to Syria, which is incredibly frightening to say the least. In the last few months, Lebanon has intensified raids aimed at returning Syrian refugees, fueled by increasing anti-refugee sentiment across the Lebanese society. It is estimated that Lebanon hosts about 1.5 million Syrian refugees, with about 805,000 officially registered with the UNHCR, which does not deteriorate between them, but in providing assistance. So not too much off a million there of them are registered with the UNHCR, but they're still looking to try and push many. Despite the government's promise of returning only Syrian refugees who enter illegally, document evidence shows that deportation includes both registered and unregistered figures. So why is that happening? Is it because they don't have information on them? Do they have paper or document or something? I registered with the UNHCR in 2013, but was forcibly returned to his country despite his legal status. According to Pala Bahamad Escoban, a UNHCR spokesperson in Lebanon, at least 93 raids were confirmed between April and early May with reports of detained and deported Syrians. The UNHCR takes reports of deportation of Syrians very seriously and is followed up with the relevant stakeholders, she said in a written email. I mean, if they don't have, they should have some kind of document or something that says to them that they legally cannot be taken out of the country or deported. Need to have something, guys. And it feels like that they don't have anything here at all. So just whether their status with the UNHCR or not, they're still like trying to have a better life, and they're just being taken back to the country against their will. And it's to do with the whole politicisation. So they're probably having a politicisation of refugees coming in, taking jobs and all that kind of stuff. That similar rhetoric we probably have in the UK, and Lebanon's people are kind of getting fed up of all these taking all these Syrian refugees. That's probably it, and that's where the rhetoric is coming from. And people will take advantage of that and use that against us and against the UNHCR as well. She added that the UNHCR advocate for international law prohibits and refugees protection in Lebanon, including prevention, refoulement, or forcible return. The UNHCR also promotes resettlement to third countries as a solution. In 2022, about 8,300 refugees resettled from Lebanon, accounting for 40% of the Middle East North African region submissions and 8% globally. A humanitarian worker interviewed by Middle East Eye, who prefers not to disclose his name because he is not authorised to speak to the press, said at least 2,137 individuals have been arrested through recent raids and at checkpoints. Additionally, 1,473 deportations from Lebanon to Syria have taken place in the last few months. The source also reveals that Lebanon's General Security Office should carry out the operations. It's the Lebanon's armed forces that are conducting them. The UNHCR is aware of the increasing number of summaries, group deportations and reports of family separation, including minors being separated from their families, and it is action by providing protection, counselling and support to deported refugee family members whenever possible, while also raising the issue with the authorities, said. I am currently terrified. The fear of being deported is obsessively felt by Malik, 32, who arrived in Lebanon in 2023 after being arrested in Syria during his military service. In 2015, he reached Europe by boat and stayed in Germany for 10 days, sleeping on the streets. However, he had to return to Syria to try and release his brother Mohammed. Begged by my mother, I returned to Syria to free Mohammed, but to my dismay, both my father and my second brother Ammar had also been arrested, he recalled. Malik couldn't free his father and siblings, so he attempted to return to Lebanon with his mother. However, local authorities later deported him to his home country, where Syrian authorities arrested him for the second time. After being detained between October 2015 and July 2016, Syrian authorities released Malik when they realised that he had already been imprisoned in 2012. Malik arrived in Lebanon in 2018 and registered with the UNHCR. However, he now lives in consistent fear of deportation and potential harm because he believes his brother Ammar was killed, while his father and brother Mohammed were released. I told the UNHCR my story and expressed my reluctance to ever return to Syria. I am currently terrified of deportation. I just want to live in safety, he said. Lebanon's decision to repropise Syrian refugees on a supposedly voluntary basis in 2022 has raised concerns among international and local NGOs. They need to be clear. They need to be a bit more clear, like those who are registered and those who are not registered. They need to be a bit more. They need to have something. I'm sure somebody in the chat might know something that says to them, "Look, I'm legally here. You can't take me." And authorities in Lebanese need to know that, so they can't shift them back to Syria. And there needs to be some kind of punishment for the country for doing this as well. To say to them, hey, you've got to take them on, and if you don't, there'll be some kind of sanctions or something, you know. Excuse me. They argue that Syria is not safe for refugees to return. and Lebanon violates the principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits sending individuals back to a country where they may face torture, cruel treatment and other forms of harm. But now voluntarily sees that returns seem to be turning into a deportation. Fadil Faik, Chief Executive Director of the Lebanese Center for Human Rights, told the Middle East Eye that the Lebanese army has arrested and deported refugees to Syria without judicial oversight through a process conducted informally. From a legal perspective, we don't see Lebanon's impersonating the Convention Against Torture, to which is a signatory, and deportation that can violate 3 of the conventions, he said. Fahad explained that some deported refugees returned to their families unharmed, while others, like Saeed in his case, were conscripted into the Syrian army. He emphasised that there are cases where individuals have endured torture and ill treatment. It depends on their situation in Syria and their financial resources regarding how much refugees can bribe authorities, he explained. The UK-based independent monitoring group Syrian Network for Human Rights told Middle East Eye it documented deportation of activists and defectors posed by Syrian security forces. That's the SNHR for those who don't know. It highlighted the arrest of the detention of Beirut, a former Syrian army captain, now a defector, and documented deportation orders for 9 Syrian refugees detained by the Lebanese General Security. Syrian refugees in Lebanon have a few options to stay in the country and avoid deportation, even though their conditions have worsened due to Lebanon's economic crisis and the restrictive policies against them. Registered refugees may have relatively easier access to legal residency in Lebanon, but those not registered with UNHCR face more complications. They may need to find sponsorship or secure employment to stay. However, Syrian refugees in Lebanon often encounter discrimination when attempting to avoid deportation. The anti-refugee rhetoric has created tension between communities, leading to some landlords and exploiting refugees by charging inflation rent in US dollars. Some landlords can even evict refugees despite regular rent payments, and without signed contracts, refugees struggle to provide proof of their tenancies. Without signed. My dad, has this had this phrase that he told me once, and it was simply one. He said, "Cover your arse. Always cover yourself when," and it basically means make sure you have everything that you need to protect yourself. And the thing is that these Syrians refugees, the ones who are with the UNHCR, are they being covered with everything they need to be protected? And if they are, why are they not being covered? Because they've got everything covered if that's the case. If it's not the case, what is the UNHCR doing about it? What is Lebanese? What pressure has been applied to the Lebanese on this? That's what I want to know. Additionally, unverified reports suggest that bribes may be exchanged between refugees and local authorities for the necessary documentation to remain in Lebanon. The streets smell of death. Farah told Middle East Eye that UNHCR is failing to fulfill its role in protecting refugees in the country, as they could apply more pressure on the Lebanese government. Ghassan told Middle East Eye that he only talks to his brother when Ali is allowed to make a call, but Ghassan worries about his future too. The Syrian refugee regime threatened me. If I am deported, I will be imprisoned in the darkness of prisons or executed, he said. Malik expressed fear of death in Syria and said he withheld certain details of his story from the UNHCR to prevent Syrian authorities from obtaining them. He shared a YouTube video with Middle East Eye of the 2013 Tamerlan massacre, where 40 civilians were executed in a mass grave, to show that he didn't want to end up like them. The people I speak to who live in Syria tell me the streets smell of death, he said. This is a horrible story, and I really feel for the Syrian refugees who are just simply trying to get out to find a better way of life. And it's pretty horrible. It's pretty horrible to say the least, guys. Guys, just before we go to the next video, I just want to say, if you can, guys, hit the like button while you're here. If you can, share this video across other social media platforms, would be greatly appreciated. And if you can, hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when my videos go live, would be greatly appreciated. all that stuff really does help, guys. And if you can, at the end of you have any comments or thoughts, not just here in the live chat, but in the comments after the premiere ends, any comments and that on it, let me know as well. I greatly appreciate the feedback as well. So we're gonna go. Oh, where is the? Yeah, there we go. So we're gonna go from there, and we're going all the way to. Not so much Ukraine, but pretty much near Ukraine, guys. This is an article from AP News here, and that's Belarus. So Belarus, obviously under the thumb of Russia, but you know, people in Belarus are living in fear too. Belarus crackdown targets not just political activists, but also their lawyers. For nearly 3 years, a harsh crackdown on dissidents in Belarus by its authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko has fouled the country's penal colons with thousands of political prisoners, with new arrests reported daily. At the same time, a government campaign has gotten rid of many independent lawyers, making it increasingly difficult for the detainees to mount any kind of legal defence. Shari Zanakhatsky is among those lawyers forced to leave Belarus under the threat of arrest. More than 500 of his colleagues have been stripped of their law licences and quit the profession since 2020. Many of them have moved abroad or faced reprisal at home. Some have even ended up in prison. So simply for doing their jobs, for being lawyers, they've been forced to flee, or basically been forced out of the profession because of who they are, you know, but of being actual defenders of political opponents. Not good. Zakoliski said Belarus had effectively run out of independent lawyers to represent the many political prisoners in the country of 9.5 million people, a situation he calls catastrophic. Well, that's what's going to happen when you eventually, you know, round up that many people. Lawyers who are reluctant to take on politically motivated cases, and even those who have already signed on contracts with clients, are no longer willing to provide them with legal service. Zakhariti told the Association Press by phone from a Western country, chances of finding a lawyer for a political prisoner in Belarus are now close to zero. This is all about stopping any kind of, not giving any kind of, keeping power within the same people, the same party, the same leader, and keeping any kind of suppress any kind of opposition whatsoever down, any kind of protest. Rule with an iron fist sort of term, Belarus. But at some point something's got to give. You know, how long are they going to be able to keep this up? That's the question. The demand for lawyers is outstripping the supply, with repressions escalating and the number of political prisoners growing, he said. Can you just give me 1 second? I'm just going to see if I can. I'm just going to zoom in a bit more so you guys can see. That's better. Sweeping crackdowns began after Lukashenko, who ran as Belarus with an iron fist for 29 years, won re-election in August in 2020 with a presidential election that was widely seen at home in the West as fraudulent. The country was swept by massive protests, some of which drew more than 100,000 people. Authorities responded with brutal crackdowns which saw over 35,000 people arrested. Thousands were beaten by police while in custody, and dozens of non-governmental organisations and independent media were shut down. The number of lawyers in Belarus has dropped from about 2,200 in 2020 to about 1,650 this year, the Justice Ministry said. Zazkiewicz said authorities have created a system in which only lawyers who are loyal to the government are allowed to represent political prisoners. It profanes the very idea of legal defence, and political prisoners aren't only deprived of their right of legal assistance but can't even report on torturous conditions behind bars, he said. In the Belarusian legal system, where convictions are a near certainty once charges are filed against the defendant, independent lawyers still serve an important function. They ensure, for example, that a case is not rushed to a conclusion, and that legal procedures are followed, and they serve as an important conduct between detainees and families. In a recent speech, Lukashenko has bluntly declared that defensive lawyers must be under control. A defensive lawyer is a public servant, and his actions must be based on legal norms and not the same imaginary norms like the freedom of speech and other freedoms, he said. We have had enough of those freedoms. I don't get that. I don't know what he means by that. It just seems a bit silly to me. 8 prominent lawyers who defend political prisoners are serving long sentences on what are seen as trumped-up charges, including attorney Nadine, who represents a presidential hopeful and got 10 years of charges of involvement in an extremist group, conspiracy to seize power, and calls for actions against national security. Alexander Danavisevich, you know I'm terrible with words, guys. I am sorry, I am terrible with words. Who spoke against Russia's war in Ukraine and defended Belarus athletes who supported protests, got the same sentence on charge of hurting national security and aiding extreme activists. Human rights activist Els Basihi, who won the 2022 Nobel Peace Prize, is serving 10 years after being convicted of financing actions he violated the public order and smuggling. Charges he rejects. His defense lawyer Vigil Bashkinets got an 8-year sentence for inciting action against national security, and another of his lawyers was stripped of his law license. Bashishi's wife Natalia Pichku now won't even identify his last remaining lawyer for fear of losing him. She says she's desperate because she hasn't heard from her husband since May, when he was moved to a notorious brutal maximum security prison and has been denied access to a lawyer. Pichku said he has received information via other prisoners that authorities have denied Baskiski even a pen and paper to request access to a lawyer. They are keeping him in tight information blackout and creating unbearable conditions and demonstrate that even a Nobel Peace laureate could be deprived of everything, including an opportunity to meet with a lawyer, she told AP. The authorities have learned how to use lawyers as an instrument of manipulation and pressure. Recent letters from the 60-year-old Bashki said his health, particularly his eyesight, had deteriorated, Pichku said, adding it's impossible to access his condition without a lawyer. The authorities have realised that lawyers tell journalists and international organisations about violations and torturous conditions in Belarusian prisons for political prisoners, she said. Lawyers know better than anyone that any confinement in Belarusian prisons seriously undermines inmates' health. There has been no word for over 100 days that opposition leader Nikolai Stekovich, who is serving a 14-year prison term, and Marina Kosovica, who got an 11-year term, likewise. The conditions of Vakvar Bakishi, an aspiring presidential candidate serving 14 years, hasn't been known for over a month, and his supporters suspect were beaten and put in prison hospital. Pichku believed the United Nations should intervene to help rupture the information blackout around Belarusian political prisoners. How? They're tied to Russia. I just don't see what the UN can really do in this situation. They're way too tied to Russia at the moment. It would be great if the UN properly used all the instruments it has, it said. Regrettably, we have seen that despite the terror in Belarus, the UN has often turned a blind eye to the situation. Authorities have banned the activities of private law firms, and all defensive lawyers were just made of state associations that are tightly overseen by the Justice Ministry. It appoints the head of such associations. By law, authorities appoint a state defensive lawyer for a defendant who can't find his own representation. State lawyers usually side with investigators instead of their clients. Voglar Voshikaska, who was in charge of inciting tensions, said she tried to contact a state lawyer for her trial so she could see documents pertaining to her case. But he not only has to refuse to talk to me, but has switched off his phone and blocked me on all messaging apps. A 24-year-old fled the country before her trial began. She was convicted of abstinence and sentenced to 12 years. Defensive lawyers in Belarus have become an instrument of the government's repression instead of defence, and it's not even clear what is worse, a lack of defence during a trial of former presidents of a lawyer legitimising their verdicts, Voskiska said. This is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. Like, any kind of opposition, any kind of talk, any kind of protest, anything whatsoever, and you are just thrown behind the bars. You are just taken away in Belarus. You are not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to say anything in Belarus based off this. Absolutely blimmin' scary. And the thing is, this is a European nation right on the doorstep of us as well. This is absolutely disgusting. This really is. Opposition leader Lafanka Tedoviska, who challenged Litvenko in the 2020 election, was pressured to flee Belarus after the vote. who put on trial in Abstega and convicted of extremism, high treason and threatening the state security, said. She was sentenced to 15 years. She said she was unable to read materials of her case and talked to a state lawyer appointed to represent her. She ran for president after her husband, a popular candidate in Axis, was arrested days after declaring his candidacy. He was convicted of organising mass unrest, including hatred and disobeying police, and sentenced to 19.5 years. I think I remember this story, and I think what happened, if I recall, she fled the country after the election. I could be wrong though. Chacha Varga told AP that her husband had been held in torturous conditions without access to a lawyer, and she hasn't heard from him for over 3 months. Citing the traditional departmentalisation of the Greek goddess of justice as blindfolded, the opposition leader said Lukashenko has added a gag in his mouth and earplugs. Last month, hundreds of lawyers who fled the country established the Belarusian Association of Human Rights Lawyers and urged the UN to act. Belarus has approved legislation that violates the very principle of essence of legal defence and applies the practice of total control over lawyers, the association said. The repressions has destroyed procedural and professional guarantees for lawyers activists, resulting in the effect of destruction of the legal defence of their country. Zelensky said his former homeland had reached a terrible moment. Belarus is quickly turning into a concentration camp in the middle of Europe, he said. Repressions in Belarus are escalating and the country has run out of lawyers, the consequences of which aren't difficult to predict. Yeah, not good at all. The Belarusian people not being able to stand up and speak for themselves, guys, is really, really horrible. So we're nearly at the hour mark. I did have 2 more stories, but I'm going to skip one of them. Maybe I should cover both actually. Yeah, I will cover both actually. We'll go a little bit over, because we seem to be all right. Let me actually just come back to me, guys, as I'm just tweaking my camera again because I'm a dummy. If you can hit the like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you can share this video, it'd be greatly appreciated as well. Anything that helps support the channel can do so. Also have access to, you can also join our Discord community called the Snowflakes server, which you guys can join us there too. Right. I'm not going to read the full thing, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about this one. From NBC News, 4 people killed, dozens injured in chaotic night of mass shootings across the countries. Fatal shootings broke out in Illinois, Mississippi and Washington on Sunday in a night of gun violence that has left more than 30 people injured. At least 4 people were killed or more in 2 dozen others injuries in shooting in Illinois, Mississippi and Washington state in a deadly night of gun violence. At least 1 person was killed with 19 more injured in a strip mall in Willoughby, Illinois, in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, police said. Eric Swanson, deputy chief of the DuPage County Sheriff Office, told the news conference that deputies heard numerous gunshots fired in response to an area where large gatherings of people was happening. Parliamentary witness and victims were indicated there were at least 20 individuals shot, he said. At this time, 1 victim is deceased, he added. They were all just out, everything you know, shots just going off, said Craig Lockett. Everybody ran, it was chaotic. The shooting came hours after 2 people were killed and 3 injured near the Beyond Wonderland Electronic Music Dance Festival in Washington State. Guys, when is the bloodshed going to stop? When are we going to start talking about doing more about guns in America, guys? When are you going to stop? When are we going to start talking about it? Police said the suspect shot randomly into a crowd at a campground near the Gulf Amphitheater, small city of Georgia, around 149 miles east of Seattle. Another deadly shooting took place just after 1 a.m. in St. Louis, Missouri. 1 person was killed and 9 others injured, according to St. Louis Metropolitan Police. Those who were shot ranged from 15 to 19 years old. Police said Sunday. The person killed was identified as a 17-year-old, according to the police chief. 17 years old. I don't know if I want to read anymore. It appears the shooting occurred at a party being held on the 5th floor of the building, an office space, Tracy said. The bullet casking at the scene indicated more than 1 gun was fired and multiple firearms were recovered at the scene. 1 person of interest, a juvenile, had been taken into custody, Tracy said. There have been 307 mass shootings in the US in 2023, according to the Gun Violence Archive, a non-profit that tracks that tracks indicates and defines a mass shooting as a single incident and at least 4 people other than a shooter are shot. What are we in? We're halfway in to the year of 2023. Over 300 mass shootings in America. When are we going to wake up, guys? When is America going to wake up and realise this? It's absolutely despicable. 17-year-old kids. Do I need to say more? I'm sure you guys are in full agreement with me. Not good enough for America. How much more lives? How much more needs to be done? It's not good enough. Just not. Just ridiculous. It needs to stop. This is one. Right, I've got one more story for you. A little bit more. Not a good story, but a hopeful story, I will say. Gives me hope. Can't say the same right now for over in America, unfortunately. But this one was very happy to hear. It gives me renewed hope, and I hope you guys have the same hope as I do. This is back to Al Jazeera. Yemenis embark on the first direct flight to Saudi Arabia since 2016. The flight carries Yemeni Muslims heading to Hajj and signals easing tensions between the two countries. So if you guys remember a while ago, ceasefire has been held, and it appears things may just be turning for the better, guys. Let's hope. The first direct flight between Yemen and Saudi Arabia in nearly 7 years has taken more than 270 Yemenis from the rebel-held Sangia to Jeddah, signaling easing tensions between the two countries. The flight by Yamia, also known as Yemen Airways, took place Saturday evening and carried Yemeni Muslims embarked on the annual Islamic pilgrimage. Sorry if I mispronounced it, guys. I know. Of Hajj in the Saudi city of Mecca. The flight is one of 5 that will carry pilgrims heading to Islam's holiest city site from Sandaz International Airport, according to Khalaf al-Shahiyah, head of the Yemeni airport. The Saudi-led military coalition closed off Sangha Airport in August 2016 as part of an air and sea blockade on the Houthi areas in Yemen. This came after a year of the coalition intervened in Yemen after Iran-aligned Houthi rebels removed the government from the capital Sangha. A Saudi delegation, which is seeking a permanent ceasefire deal, concluded peace talks with the Houdini group in mid-April in Sangha. The peace talks comes on the heels of Saudi Arabia and Iran's restoring diplomatic ties in recent months, with the latest meeting between the country's foreign ministers in Tehran Saturday. This is good. We need more getting around the table and talking. And this first flight between the two nations is great optimism, because we need that right now. Ramadi helped facilitate a prisoner exchange in April between the Yemeni rebels and government forces, which frees more than 800 detainees and further boosts hopes of ending the protracted war. Yemen's conflict has killed tens of thousands of people and is deemed one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, and it's also seen as a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Yemenis travel to Mecca for Hajj will be joined by millions of Muslims from around the world. I know it's still one of the world's most humanitarian crises, but we need some optimism, guys, and let's hope it gives, if some aid gets to the people gets there, and the ceasefire continues. Less bloodshed the better, is what I'll say, guys. So we need hope sometimes. So I've got one more video for you guys before I'm done. We have hit over an hour, and I really appreciate it. If you guys have been here all along the way from this premiere, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, obviously, for watching. I really do appreciate it. I know it's not any UK news, but I've got plenty of videos for you guys throughout the week for you guys to watch. Obviously, I'll put disclaimers on all of them to remind people that they are recorded from Sunday, as this is, so you guys so you guys are aware. But thank you guys very much for coming in, supporting channels. If you like sharing, just messaging in the chat, anything like that. Any feedback, of course, is always greatly appreciated as well. So I have one more thing for you guys. Let's hope I can get. Can I get this person up? Can I do it like that? Yeah, why not do it like that? Yeah, I've got one more little video. You may know this. You may know this lady. We've had her before. But yeah, I'm gonna play this video and then I'll hit the outro video, guys. So thank you all so much for coming along. Like, share, and subscribe as always. And I'll catch you all very, very soon.
Hi, it's me, Navine Borries. I'm resigning and I won't change my mind. I am not resigning. Oh, Boris, the stuff they wrote about you is absolutely awful. I mean, I've not read it, but you're obviously innocent and so is our love.
They're deluded, they're deranged, I haven't been able to stop jogging.
90 days too. I mean, that's the worst news I've ever heard. It's so long. I mean, it's beyond comprehension.
Look, Nads, Monday will reveal all. You know, who is a lion and who is a kangaroo.
Raw. I'm a naughty lion. I know. I won't quit. I'll wait. I'll force people to vote against the report, and if they don't, they'll get what's coming.
Nads, you don't have to do that.
BJ for you, anytime. Have you left your wife yet?
Come on, I wouldn't. I'm not like that. I wouldn't do it to Helen. I mean, Carrie.
Why? Are you not interested in me anymore? You did put me on the honors list, didn't you?
Of course I did, Nads.
Show me then. I want to see it. Or is someone else more attractive than me?
Nads, calm down.
No, you calm down. Who is she? Who do you want to honour? You better not lie to me!
I've got to jog. Oh no!
I want to see all the correspondence about the honours list. There's sinister forces at play, not naming any names, Harriet Harman. I won't sleep until I find out how Boris feels about me. I will be honoured by Boris, and I'll do that by whatever means necessary to get justice for me and my BJ. A message to the Conservatives who don't vote right. I will look for you, I will find you, and I will